What are you going to do with those pies, boys?
Hello, cadets. Welcome again to the Big Monster Briefing Room. Today, we are going to do a Hammer training film called The Curse of Frankenstein. But first, let me bring up my able-bodied assistant, Major Millie Hazzard.
Oh, hello there, General. Sorry, I'm eating some keto ice cream. Have you seen this stuff? It's like 300 calories for a full
I'm not seeing
pint.
anything.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. You can eat 15 of these a day, and it's no problem. You know, you don't gain any weight on it. I loved it. But anyways,
we're doing the stuff in a couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
So I think this might be a bad thing. You should be eating that keto ice cream in 2 weeks.
Okay. That's fair enough.
But I can't see anything because you're on secret assignment, evidently.
I'm on secret assignment, hence the
Either that or
keto
you
ice
haven't cleaned up your lab.
I'm doing I'm very stressed out. This secret assignment, let me tell you, it's hairy, it's stinky, it's big and muscular, and honestly, I just want to come home. I just want to come home, so I'm eating all the tubs of ice cream I can get my hands on.
So that will make you sick enough for they will send you home?
I'll let your imagination just run wild with that one. But I'm done with this secret assignment. I'll be back next week on camera. It's no problem. But anyway, Speaking about big and muscular and stinky, we got a show about a very famous big monster. Everybody knows this big monster. He's kind of lovable and affable, I'd say sometimes.
Not in this one.
Not in this one. But
Have you watched this film? Have you watched this training film?
I see our expert laughing back in the green room because
gnarly and nasty.
She knows all about the big nasty.
And what's worse is that the doctor is worse than the monster.
Yes,
but we'll talk about that in a minute with our Frankenexpert, who's coming up right now, Miss Jaime Bennett.
She knows all there is to know about the Franken. Not Al Franken, but the other Franken.
All the Frankens.
All the Frankens.
All the Frankens and the Frankensteins and the Frankensteins. Just to set up her credentials, Jaime has a show. Actually, she has several shows, but she has a show about ghosts and monsters and stuff, and the lore. I'll let you talk about that for our audience, so they can look for it.
Oh no, no pressure. I have a show called Belongs to the Shadows, and I talk about haunted history as well as like ghosts and anything that goes bump in the night, I guess.
Yes, and but you also really delve deep into the lore of Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein, etc., etc., etc. So anytime we do a Franken movie, a Franken training film, we call you in to help us out. And this one is kind of a milestone because this is the first Hammer film to deal with Frankenstein. This actually kind of created a slew of Frankenstein training films from Hammer Films with Peter Cushing. I said Cushing. Grand Moff Tarkin playing Dr. Frankenstein in them. And in these films, Dr. Frankenstein is a real a-hole, to say the least. So that's kind of how they twisted and changed the lore, and it worked. It worked for them in these films. So let's go ahead and bring up our timeline. The Curse of Frankenstein, 1957 training film. released to America through Warner Brothers. Nice Franken credits. It starts as most Hammer films with a nice matte shot of the European countryside and like a wagon or a carriage going through it. And it turns out that there's a priest coming to give the last rites to Dr. Frankenstein, who's in the insane asylum. And Frankenstein decides to tell his story to the priest in hopes that it might help to save his life. So we get a flashback to young Dr. Frankenstein as a student, and there in the middle of the picture is his betrothed Elizabeth. She's very young, and he has taken care of her family. His family has taken care of her family for generations. And then his teacher comes. I think his name's Paul. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I believe so. I think it's Paul.
Yeah, it's Paul, I believe. And Paul is a brilliant instructor of science. He has to be because young Frankenstein actually is very presumptuous, and he is very intellectual, very intelligent, and he has some different kinds of ideas and theories about life and death. So eventually they get a kind of a montage. He ends up kind of teaching Paul through his new theories. And Paul is fascinated by all of it and is kind of pulled in. And they're going to try to preserve life, which is what doctors do. So the first experiment that they do, Paul works the machinery while young Dr. Frankenstein, I think it's Victor, is watching over the subject, which is a little puppy. Mm-hmm. They're trying to revive a little puppy. Now, how the puppy died, I don't know, but they're trying to bring it back. After what has happened in the latter part of this film, I'm guessing Dr. Frankenstein smothered it.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Either that
just
or
to get the body parts. Just to get the puppy parts. But obviously the experiment works. They succeed. They bring the puppy back to life after it's dead. So Paul goes, "This is amazing. We have to report this. We have to tell all the other scientists about this." And he goes, "No, let's wait. We're not done yet. We got to move to the next level first, which is we're gonna make a person, and we're gonna bring life to it." So now Paul is not happy about this. He's talking about collecting dead bodies, sewing everything together, making a human, and then bringing life to it. And they go get somebody who's been hanged, a murderer has been hanged. They cut his body down. They wheel it back to Castle Frankenstein, I guess. Yes, I just made a noise. They're waiting for my slurping noises. He's talking about the project. Yeah. She's on some kind of assignment with something big and furry and stinky. I don't think it's Bigfoot though, because she says she wants to go home as soon as possible, and she loves Bigfoot. So, okay. So, what are your feelings about Frankenstein, young Dr. Frankenstein here, early on, and his experiments?
I don't know. I don't really care for Frankenstein, like Victor Frankenstein in this particular film.
Yes.
He's not a very likable person.
He's not nice. He's not a nice guy. He kind of mows over. He kind of just doesn't care about morality at all. Paul obviously struggles with all of this. He seems to be a very moral person. Also, we meet the housekeeper. played by Jennifer Gaunt. Or no, Valerie Gaunt. I'm sorry. And we're going to talk a little later about her and why she's so famous in the horror movie industry, in the horror movie world. This was not the first movie she did for Hammer. They did a movie the year before called Horror of Dracula. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit and why she's so famous, because she was in that as well. And Elizabeth shows up. Okay, so this kind of makes things a little weirder, a little stranger, because they're trying to make this human being. And Elizabeth shows up, and that's Hazel Court. And unfortunately, Hazel Court is not my type, so I won't do a. Well, okay, maybe I did, but I first saw Hazel Court in a movie called The Raven with Boris Karloff and Peter Lorre and Vincent Price, and she was very nasty and evil in that. And she looks like she's kind of, I don't know, bitchy. I don't know, she's kind of got that look about her. So she's never been my cup of tea, because I always remember her from that and how nasty she was in that. Frankenstein comes in and he just goes by her like, oh, hey, honey. Oh, you're here. Great. He goes right to the lab because he has just got a new set of hands. So he's like a little kid on Christmas. He's so excited. And they have little seams on the sides. Okay, I probably shouldn't have said that. Little continuity gap I didn't like. So he shows him to Paul. And Paul's like, hey, what about the girl, the lady that just showed up at our front doorstep? Oh, yeah, that's my wife to be. And he's trying to tell her, look, maybe this is not the best place for you. Maybe you got to go. She's like, no, my husband loves me. My future husband loves me. And then we cut to that Franken heel. He's having an affair with a maid.
Yeah.
So, and she's obviously in love with him. And then we have this thing where he goes past Elizabeth a couple of days later. He's got his little doctor's bag with him. I'll be back in a few days. And he goes and gets a pair of eyes. And one of them doesn't look too good. So, okay. I'm going to put this to you now. How do you feel this differs from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? I mean, other fact that he's a douchebag. I mean, what differences do you see from the original material and what we have here?
I don't know. It just, like director's take on it. Mm-hmm. The scenery. Just, it seems like there's so much different about this film. Like, I love the way that the Frankenstein that I love looks, and this Frankenstein looks a little bit different, and I don't know.
I guess you're referring to the original or the Universal horror movie. Okay, this is what you like, Boris Karloff.
Yes.
And
of course.
Again, Colin Clive. It's alive! Yeah. It's alive! It's alive!
I mean, this film was good. I like when they do a different take on Frankenstein.
I have to be totally honest. I personally am one of those people. I've had this conversation with others before, even just recently. I love color films as opposed to black and white films. I just enjoy the color more.
Yeah.
So obviously I love the rich color in the Hammer films. I also, because it's made in England, the sets look more European. The costumes look more the time period. When Universal's doing movies, like when they did Sherlock Holmes with Basil Rathbone, it took place in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
At the time that the movies were made, so they just kind of changed it. I mean, and again, they've taken that a step further with the Sherlock recently. Being in modern times.
Yeah.
Sorry. yeah, as far as the feel and the costumes and the what they've done with the castles and everything, yeah, I kind of get a better sense, more of a sense, and the color with the Hammer films. But again, just the characters are kind of different.
Yeah.
They're very different.
Yeah. I think it's like when you're used to seeing characters one way, it's hard to like envision them in another way, in another direction. But I like to watch, films that have a different take on Frankenstein.
Well, I don't remember the character of Paul, who seems to be the moral one.
Yeah.
I don't remember the character of Paul from the book. It's been a long time since I've read the books, or the book, I should say. I don't remember that. I remember that they did another American TV movie on Frankenstein with Michael Sarrazin as the monster. And there was another person working with Frankenstein who's Mike David McCallum was the actor that was he was kind of a mentor, and he was a teacher, and I remember it was kind of the same character. I'm not sure if his name was Paul. And then James Mason showed up as Dr. Pretorius, trying to get the bride of Frankenstein. So we had that.
Yeah.
So there's kind of characters from the Universal pictures. There's kind of characters from the Hammer pictures and that. So again, everybody's got their different take on it. And also, Sting in The Bride. It's just called The Bride. Played a very nasty, again, Dr. Frankenstein. He was doing it the British way. And again, the hero was the monster. The monster is the one that saved the bride, and they go off together in happiness.
Yeah.
And it's Sting who's the villain.
Yeah, I do like different takes on Frankenstein. One of the different takes on, Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster, however you want to say it, like there's the big debate, is the Penny Dreadful series. I really like how they did Frankenstein in that series and Dr. Frankenstein.
I want to say it was Roy Kinnear, but I think that was his father. Kinnear is the name of the actor, the family name of the actor. I can't remember, but he played the monster in that. And yes, the Dr. Frankenstein that was tormented by the monster, but the monster, you felt for the monster, that he was. I don't know. You felt for him. Like, okay, I understand why he's the way he is.
Like there's a deeper connection.
So, and then season 3 happened. But we won't go.
Can't argue there.
We don't go down that road now. Okay, so again, Dr. Frankenstein and Paul are always at ends. They're always fighting with each other because of the morality of what they're doing, and they don't have a brain for the monster yet. And all of a sudden, we have a dinner party with an old guy who's very brilliant. And the whole time you're saying, "Oh my God, he's gonna kill this guy and get his brain."
Yeah.
And Hazel Court looks lovely there, but again, got that bitchy look about her. I'm guessing she could have played Endora on Bewitched.
Yes, she could have. I agree.
What would the show have been like if Hazel Court had
Probably would have been a lot different.
With Uncle Arthur. Okay. So, if Paul comes down and he's missed the party, and Frankenstein is like, "Oh, it's time to go to bed." Okay. Take a look at this picture at the top of the stairs. Oh, look out! And he pushes him over. Obviously, he's like sawed the banister, and he pushes the guy over the banister. Now, you would think that, Frankenstein, being as brilliant as he is, would be worried that the guy would fall on his head. But no, I guess there was no concern about that, evidently. And he pretty much does. He falls on his head.
He ruins it. How dare he fall poorly?
Well, surprisingly, the brain seems to be undamaged at this point. I'm guessing. Who knows? Maybe it was part of maybe it wasn't Paul's fault later. But there it goes. And again, I think you can see the little saw marks in the banister. Because that banister, that old man wouldn't have gone through that banister otherwise. And there we go. We've got Frankenstein looking at his dirty work, and the next day, hey, it's a funeral. Thank you, Dr. Frankenstein, for letting him burying him in your family crypt. How convenient. Well, he did die in my house. I also have a Death Star up above the planet, and if you don't let me have his brain, I'm going to zap the planet. So, yes, we have the scene where he goes into the crypt, he opens the coffin, looks down at his old mentor, his friend who he has killed, and takes his brain. And then Paul shows up. And I think his line is something to the effect of, I thought I'd find you here. They have a fight over the brain, over the morality of why he did this, and whether did you kill the man? I'm not going to answer that question. I'm not going to incriminate myself. And they smash the bag with the brain and the glass into the wall. And Frankenstein is distraught because he's sure that the brain is damaged now. He's picking glass out of it, hoping he can save it. Paul goes immediately to Hazel Court. You got to get out of here. This place is dangerous for you. And she's again like, what are you talking about? Leave me alone. Don't tell me where to go. She loves her husband, I guess. Although she does wonder what he does in his lab all the time. He won't let her in the lab. Okay, so he's, again, picking glass out of the brain. And he's decided to go through with the experiment anyway, even though the brain's probably damaged. He's playing God. He wants to play God. So, and that's what everybody brings up when they're talking about Frankenstein movies and training films and books and whatnot, is the fact that Dr. Frankenstein is playing God.
Yeah.
He wants to create a human that he can manipulate, control. He's playing God. And that's the highest morality point, I think, of this movie, because we take dead people's body parts and use them for other people's gain.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you're not going to use your eyes. You're dead. Okay, we'll give them to somebody that needs good eyes.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so we do that, but back at this time, that was considered a big no-no. You didn't desecrate a body. They felt, and I think I saw this in a movie called The Doctor and the Devils. People at that time thought that if you dismembered a body, that's how it would show up in heaven. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Timothy Dalton was in that. That was one of his first films. Or not one of his first films, but it was an earlier film in his career, before James Bond. And he, of course, poo-pooed all that. Well, what are you talking about? But then he was hiring body snatchers. That was the whole thing about it. Was he was hiring body snatchers to get fresh parts to work with for anatomy.
Yeah. A
very good movie. We should cover that movie on this show. So Frankenstein tries to run the experiment himself, and he feels he can't do it properly. Excuse me. Time for beach tea. So he goes up to Paul, and a lightning strikes, and things go kind of awry in the laboratory. And he goes up to Paul's room and says, "Hey, Paul, come on. I know you don't like this. I know you don't agree with it, but please help me with this one thing. Let's bring life back to this creation of mine, and then I'll let you go. And you'll have my blessing." So he is talking with him about this, and again, down in the lab, everything's lit up like a Christmas tree, and the liquid drains out of the monster's little vat there. There's a lot of homage to this movie, or to these movies, I should say, in the Rocky Horror Picture Show that we showed on here a couple of weeks ago. The body wrapped up in bandages like that in a tank of liquid. That's Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, I
that
could
obviously
see
came
that.
from this. But I'm pretty sure they did that in most of these. The monster was in bandages and water at one point or another.
Yeah.
So Paul is quintessentially the guy that just can't say no, even when it's terrible things he's being asked to do.
It's like, oh.
So he has agreed to help out. So he's getting cleaned up and getting ready. Frankenstein goes back down to the lab, and the monster's awake. And he's waiting. Hey, where you been? Why'd you leave me? But he rips off his bandages, and he's a hideous thing. That we'll see in a minute. And there it is. That's Christopher Lee's take on the monster. And again, a lot more vicious than Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
Showing a lot less emotion than Boris Karloff. He's just pretty much angry all the time. And that's probably because of the glass in the brain. Or maybe, the fall to the head, off the banister.
Either or.
Frankenstein certainly wants to point the blame at Paul because he's angry with Paul. So the monster grabs Dr. Frankenstein, his creator, and strangles him.
I mean, this seems fair.
Why did you bring life to me? I look terrible. Well, and he hasn't even seen himself. The monster hasn't even seen himself. Luckily, Paul comes down just in the nick of time, just before Frankenstein dies, Dr. Frankenstein, and he clunks the monster with a chair. Actually, the monster, beats him off once. Luckily, doesn't kill him, and he clunks him with a chair. And, that's the irony of it. He actually saves Dr. Frankenstein, who goes on to create all kinds of nasty monsters and madness throughout these movies. He's just a bad, bad man. And it could have ended right here. But it doesn't.
Maybe he could have become one of the experiments.
Paul?
No, Dr. Frankenstein. Maybe Paul could have done experiments on Dr. Frankenstein.
I mean, there were other people that worked with Dr. Frankenstein. He turned them into monsters.
Yeah.
They cut the tops of their heads off, blah, 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 I think that's the premise of Frankenstein must be destroyed. He takes people that he doesn't like, that he hates, and he turns them into Frankenstein monsters.
Note to self, do not get on his bad side, I guess.
Man. Might wake up in a lab in a tank of goo, bandaged up,
with glass
the top
in
of your
his
head
brain.
stapled on. Yes. Okay, so they go back, and now that they've put the monster at bay, they go back. They think everything's cool. The monster gets up and escapes, and not only gets up and escapes, but has clothed himself. So this is a pretty smart monster, actually. He has clothed himself in the clothes of the dead hanged man that are evidently... Okay. They've got a tank of acid in the spare room here, okay, that they get rid of all the evidence. If a body part doesn't work, they throw it in the vat of acid. It's gone in 30 minutes. Kind of like Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. That's truth, actually. He had a vat of acid in his closet.
Oh, that's
so anyway,
they've
got this vat of acid, but they don't acid the clothes. I guess they're like me. They're a hoarder. They're like, oh, you know what? This is a nice navy pea coat. I think I'll keep this. But the monster clothes himself as he escapes. He doesn't just go off in the bandages, which I think they learned from this. That was a gaffe. Because in later movies, the monster's running around in bandages. Frankenstein, the monster from hell, David Prowse, who's later became Darth Vader. Well, actually, David Prowse played a couple of the monsters. And there was another Hammer film with the monster is David Prowse, and he's got the bandaged look. He's got the bandages on. So Yeah, the monster clothes himself. He even puts his own boots on. I mean, you know, you got to be proud of that. You know, when your kid can do that at that age. So, all right. Now, this is homage to the Universal films because not only do they have a blind man right out of, you know, Bride of Frankenstein, they have a young kid who goes down by the water a la Maria in the first Frankenstein movie.
Yeah. I did appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, they were doing their nod. So and Christopher Lee comes out in his navy pea coat, and the old man can't see him, but somehow he senses this is not good because he starts to freak out immediately. It's probably because he's not answering him. He's asking him, "Hey, who is that? Why are you here? What are you doing? Why won't you talk to me?" And he freaks out. And of course, when he freaks out, the monster gets angry. Even breaks his walking stick in half. I'll show you, you old decrepit blind man. And so that's it. He kills him. Stop making so much noise. And the kid hears it, and he goes running toward it. Grandpa! Grandpa! We don't see his death, but yeah, we know it happens.
Yeah.
So Paul and Dr. Frankenstein, Victor, come across the monster in a huge area. They managed to find the monster. It's amazing how they were able to track him down. But Paul is taking no chances, gun ready. And Frankenstein even tries to get him to put the gun down at one point, and he won't do it. And he blasts the monster in the face. In this particular scene with the blood coming through his fingers, I think this one is the one that hits home with a lot of kids that watched this film originally. Like, wow, that's cool. Look at all that blood.
Yeah.
This was very graphic. British films are rated X if they show violence.
Oh, really?
If they show blood. So all of the Hammer films were rated X.
Wow.
In England. So only grown-ups could go see them. Kids were not allowed to see these. Of course, we run them on PBS here in America all the time.
Yeah, you know.
Hey, you want to see that decapitation? Hey, here's a Hammer film on PBS. I remember when I was a kid watching Monty Python, and they had a nude woman. Again, nudity is not considered X in England.
Yeah.
So there was a nude woman in a comedy sketch for Monty Python where a guy is just oblivious to everything that's going on around him. Yeah. And I remember seeing that as a kid. I was probably about 12 years old, and I was like, whoa, hey. I'm going through puberty with Monty Python. So, yeah, it's the British censors that made it really tough on Universal Films for the horror films. That's why they shut them down around 1934. And then they didn't come back for like 5 years. They came back with Son of Frankenstein. Like 5 years later, they decided to take a second shot at it because the British censors just basically said, no, and nobody's going to watch these films. We're going to make sure of that. And they were black and white. So then we get the showdown between the housekeeper and Dr. Frankenstein, who's basically laughing at her. Oh, you cute little thing. You're so adorable. you have to get rid of the lady. She got to go. So that night she goes looking. She says she's going to tell Elizabeth about what's in the laboratory. So Frankenstein knows she's going to go down there. Now this is Valerie Gaunt in a movie a year before called Horror of Dracula. Now she is famous because a lot of people think she's the first person to show fangs in a Dracula or in a vampire movie. She goes to bite. Did we skip one? No. Okay. No, we didn't. I'm sorry. I just didn't put that picture in there. This is the first guy actually to show fangs in a vampire movie. It's Dracula in Istanbul. It's a Turkish film.
Yeah.
And he was the first one to actually show fangs. She is the first one to show fangs in a mainstream film that went around the world and in color. And she's the first female to show fangs as a vampire in a movie. So she's famous for being that first one. She's also famous for being probably the first vampire being staked in a movie that you see it.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people say, no, Christopher Lee was the first one to show his fangs, but she actually goes to bite the guy's neck right before Christopher Lee shows up. So she's the first one. So anyway, she goes down the cellar, and guess what she runs into? The monster's back, and Dr. Frankenstein locks the door to make sure that the job is done. Oh my God, what a bad guy.
Yeah.
Hazzard, what do you think of Dr. Frankenstein in this?
Oh, he's quite a dish. He's quite a male dish.
You mean he's attractive?
I mean, the heart wants what the heart wants.
So yes, he has two women in love with him, and he is just a total creep. He is such a jerkwad.
I believe I would have thrown him in the vat of acid.
Yeah, well, if you knew it was there.
Yeah.
So now we have the breakfast scene, and she's like, "What happened to Consuelo, or whatever her name was? The housekeeper. She just disappeared. Oh well, I'm sure she'll turn up. Get one of those." And they throw another party. So I'm thinking, he must need some body parts or something. But no, it's actually a very, very timid party. He goes up to work in the lab after the party's over, and Paul shows up late after the party's over. And she's, why did you go talk to him? Why didn't you go say hi to him? So he goes to the lab. At this point, he thinks the monster's gone. He thinks the monster went into the vat of acid, and it's gone. It's no more. Oh no, I'm sorry. They buried the monster in the woods. That's what it was. And then Frankenstein dug him back up. So we went past that somehow. I was talking maybe on a tangent on something, and we went past those slides. But Frankenstein went and dug the body back up and revived him, and supposedly did some brain surgery on him. Because you see there's like a little thing where he shaved the head and went in and went into the cranium and did some work. So now the monster supposedly does whatever Dr. Frankenstein wants him to. Look at him, Paul. My creation. And it gets him to sit down on the floor. And it's just kind of sad and embarrassing. Is Rory here? I don't think so.
I've heard of him. Rory's pretty cool.
Jamie's here, and Hazard's here. Anyway, so Paul again is like, oh my God, we're going through this again. So he's like, you got to get out of here. On his way out, he's going past her. On his way out, he's like, you got to get out of here. Okay, really, it's not safe for you here. Honestly, you got to go. And he goes past her. And then Frankenstein comes running past her. Like, Paul, come back. And she's like, well, what happened? What just happened here? What's going on?
He's going so fast, he's blurry.
That's right.
He's all blurry. Look how fast he's going.
He's so blurry.
Fast. And we want to.
Grand Moff Tarkin is running at high speed. He's doing the Kessel Run. That's for my Star Wars fans out there. So he goes outside and he tries to reason with Paul. Come on back, please. Help me with the experiments. You saw he's tame now. There's nothing wrong with him. Okay, I'm making up dialogue, but anyway, he's talking to him outside. And
almost identically what happened. That's identically the scene. It was perfect.
No, it's not. I'm just making shit up. Come back. Play some tiddlywinks with me, Paul. Come on, please. Exactly she's like, hey, I think they left the door open. Let me go check. Yes, he's a Grand Moff Tarkin. That's what he is. And she goes in there, and of course, there she sees the monster. What? She runs out, and and the monster gets away. It pulls its own chain out of the wall, and it gets away. So when she gets there, the suspense builds. You think he's going to kill Elizabeth. And he's already gone up through a skylight window. And she sees the broken skylight window, and she's wondering what's going on. And then as they're arguing outside on the lawn, they look up, and the monster is up on the second level of the castle. Hey! So like, oh, good Lord. So they go up. Elizabeth's yelling over to Frankenstein on another ledge, and the monster comes out and grabs her. Frankenstein's got his gun. He shoots without thinking. Hey, wait a minute. Isn't she in front of the monster? He hits Elizabeth. Oh! I guess I should have thought that one through. Oh, that's terribly bad. Oh, that's going to leave a mark. I'm sorry.
It's okay. He can use body parts. It's
Terribly
fine.
sorry. I'll fix that. I will. I'll fix that. I promise you. And he shoots again. And he hits the monster, but it's not a fatal wound. I'm not a very good shot, I guess. I'm sorry. Terribly sorry. Oh my goodness. He's dropped her on the hard concrete floor. This could be a parody in itself. So the
This
monster
needs to be its own television show. I was telling you that about someone else was telling you that about a radio drama. You need to just do a slide and you provide all of the dialogue. It would be hilarious. I'm just telling you that's a show. It's a show. I'm just putting it out there.
All right. So the monster comes to where he's at very quickly. He evidently knows the house really well because he gets there really quickly. And this may be the first movie where somebody has shot at something, run out of bullets, and thrown the gun at the thing, because he throws the gun at the monster, which really ticks him off. And then amazingly, a lamp is on the shelf there next to him. So conveniently. So he lights the monster up. Monster's not happy about that. Again, fire, bad. He finds a window to fall through, which he does. And you know what? It's the window over the acid pit. It just happens to be the window over the acid bath. So he goes through the window, boom, right into the acid bath. No more monster. Now, here's the thing. If the monster's gone, how did the police know? I'm guessing Paul must have turned him in. Okay, because he shot Elizabeth.
Yeah. That would be my guess.
I wish we'd have seen that scene. Hello, please. He's gone quite mad. So anyway, he's in prison. He's in the insane asylum. They're gonna send him to the guillotine that morning.
Yeah.
Such a
Lovely view of the acid bath.
such a lovely view of the acid bath. Yes. And you would think, somebody would see that. What is that? Is that a vat of acid he's got down there? Wait a minute, he's got a monster tied up to the shelf there. You got a skylight to your secret lab. Not a good idea. So the priest is like, "You're quite insane, my child. I'm sorry." That's the craziest story I've ever heard. I'm going to leave now while I still can. And Paul shows up, and luckily Elizabeth is shown there with like what is it? A sling
Yeah.
on. So he just shot her in the arm, I guess. It was enough to knock her out, but it was just a shot to the arm, I guess.
It was just a flesh wound. It's fine.
Only a flesh wound. I've had worse. So, again, when he goes, can we go back 2 slides? When he goes to talk to the priest, when Paul shows up, Paul's like, I have no idea what he's talking about. He's absolutely crazy. Which pretty much cements, in my mind at least, that Paul and Elizabeth are now a thing.
Yeah.
She finally figured it out. Oh, this guy's good for me. The other guy, not good for me. Let's go ahead and see to it that he gets the guillotine. So they walk out, just as happy as can be. That'll heal in a few weeks, my dear. and they escort Baron Frankenstein the next morning out to the guillotine. He looks up at the guillotine. This happens at the end of several of these Frankenstein movies in the Hammer. He ends up, he's going to be hanged. He's going to be guillotined at the end. And you just know Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He's going to get out of this somehow and come back. Somehow, somebody's going to revive him. And he's going to do his Baron Frankenstein stuff over again. So there he is looking up at the guillotine. They give us a nice shot of the guillotine as the blade is raising. Some ominous music at the end of the movie.
And we got to greet Pan. We love Pan. She's having a wonderful time. She's eating all of this Greek food, all this amazing Greek food. She's making me hungry right now. I wish I had some.
She's making some papa ganoush. Robert Urquhart plays Paul Kremp. I am Paul Kremp. And he was actually, it says something in the opening credits about him being loaned to them from another studio.
Oh, wow.
And of course, we have young Elizabeth, Sally Walsh, a lecturer who I don't remember. And it's a Hammer production. So again, this whole thing started with them doing Quatermass movies, which are these alien, black and white alien films. They made some money off of that. They decided to go full color with Horror of Dracula and this one. And they had another hit with Hammer's version of the Hound of the Baskervilles with Peter Cushing playing Sherlock Holmes. My favorite Sherlock Holmes, I might add. And Christopher Lee was Sir Henry Baskerville in that. So he'd already played Dracula. He'd already played Frankenstein. Let him play Henry Baskerville, the hero. So, and there it is. So again, after this one, they did The Evil of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, Frankenstein Created Woman, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. They did a lot of these Frankenstein movies. And Peter Cushing always played Dr. Frankenstein, and he was always a douche, as they would say on Supernatural.
Yeah.
Sam, Dr. Frankenstein's douche. Sam. Dean Winchester. Anytime I get a chance to do that impression, I do it because I love it. So yeah, a very different Frankenstein. You know,
yeah.
Not to be outdone by Sting.
No, of course
He
not.
tried. He tried. I'm trying to remember. I think it was called Frankenstein: The True Story. Was the TV movie that they did with Michael Sarrazin as the monster, and it was what is his name that played Romeo in the original Romeo and Juliet back in the late '60s? Leonard Whiting maybe was Frankenstein in that. I think it was Leonard Whiting, and again he had David McCallum as his teacher, and something happened to him, I guess, and I think he became part of the monster. So, I'll bring him back. I think it was his brain. I think he got his brain. Yeah. Usually it's the old teacher mentor whose brain they get to put in the monster. Yeah. And in that film, the body of the monster began to reject all of its different parts because they didn't match up or something, and he started to become uglier and uglier as the movie progressed. But he wouldn't die. And that was actually fairly faithful to the book.
Yeah.
The book has them going off to like the Antarctic at the end. And I think Dr. Frankenstein dies of hypothermia, freezing to death. And that's happened a couple of times. There was a Frankenstein with Robert De Niro. I'm a monster. This Frankenstein guy want him dead, want his family dead. You talking to me? Because I don't see any of the monsters standing here. And that was directed by, oh my gosh, Shakespeare. Oh my God, this name is escaping me. Anyway, he played Dr. Frankenstein in the movie, and he directed it. He was in the Harry Potter films as was one of the characters. He's done a lot of stuff. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Where's my phone? Where's my other phone? Go to IMDb, gosh darn it. That'll do it. I can't believe I'm not remembering this name. I hate it when that happens. Okay.
While the general is looking that up, I'll remind everyone that in about 8 minutes, stay tuned because we have no icing with treats coming up. We have some amazing people. It's a very exciting show. It's a big show, so you're going to want to stay on. You're going to want to watch it. If you don't watch it, then you're going to miss out. Just reminding everybody.
Yes. And the name I was searching for was Kenneth Branagh.
Oh, okay.
Kenneth Branagh, who unfortunately was in that Wild Wild West movie as well. with Will Smith.
Yeah. I didn't even
Hollywood.
I didn't even watch that film.
I remember Kevin Smith was supposed to do a Superman movie, and there was a producer that was attached to that movie, and all he wanted was a big giant mechanical spider. That's what he wanted. He wanted a big giant mechanical spider that shot fireballs. Like explosive fireballs. Man, that's all he was about. And Kevin Smith was like, man, this guy was just all about that. That's all he wanted. And that deal fell through. And it ended up in the producer's next film, which was Wild Wild West. The giant mechanical spider that shot fireballs. So he got it. And unfortunately, the movie tanks. All right. Well, any parting thoughts on Frankenstein, the Curse of Frankenstein?
Like I said, it doesn't compare to my beloved Frankenstein from Universal Monsters, but I do appreciate, that they put the kid next to the water, and appreciate that they, gave a nod.
Yeah. I don't know if we talked about this before. I can't remember if we talked about this before, but what was your favorite Frankenstein look at with Universal? Was it Karloff?
Yeah, I like that one the best.
Okay. For me, it was Glenn Strange. He just looked like the monster to me because he's got that craggy kind of face. And it was long, and I love the look of Glenn Strange as the monster. Yeah, unfortunately, in the movies that he was in, he didn't really get much to do as the monster. But he looked great.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite look.
Yeah, I can appreciate that look as well. Like, I appreciate other Frankensteins, but I stick with my favorite.
And we did the last time you were on the show, we did the Monster Squad. Tommy Noonan as the monster. That was a pretty good Frankenstein look.
Yeah.
And it was different,
Yeah, it was
a bit more realistic, I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know if when Halloween costumes came out in the 50s and 60s, the monster was painted green.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was there was some footage shot in color for Young Frankenstein. I think it was home footage on a home camera for Karloff, from Karloff's family, because he had made a lot of money at that time. And he was green. Jack Pierce painted him as green. And I know there's a famous scene out there where they show it all over the internet where he's sticking his tongue out of the camera.
Yeah,
and again, he's in the Frankenstein outfit with the wool overcoat, and he's green. Yeah. So that's where that came from. And ever since then, Frankenstein monster has kind of been painted as a green character. But really, he would be greenish. Yeah. Maybe more skin tone, but greenish because, rotting flesh. Yeah. I don't know. So anyway, I digress. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thank you.
And sharing thoughts with us on this this momentous Frankenstein movie, The Curse of Frankenstein, which started a whole new wave of Frankenstein films in the 70s. The 60s and 70s. This was actually 57, but I don't think they did the next one until the early 60s, like 61, 62. 62, they revived the Dracula series because they did Horror of Dracula in 58, I think, the year after The Curse of Frankenstein. And Brides of Dracula, which didn't even have Dracula in it, they did in 62. So, and I thought that this girl, Valerie Gaunt, was in that one, but she wasn't. She was in the first one. She was in Horror of Dracula.
Yeah.
And the first female to show fangs on screen in color, and the first one to get the stake through the heart where you could see it. They did a stake through the heart in the very first Dracula with Bela Lugosi, but you don't see it.
Yeah.
They just imply it. And again,
Yeah.
any other movie after that, they just imply it. And there is a stake in the skeleton in Horror of Frankenstein that they pull out, or not Horror of Frankenstein. What am I saying? House of Frankenstein. They pull out, and it becomes John Carradine. But most of the time, he was killed by the sunlight in those movies.
Yeah.
So, all right. So anyway, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Major Hazzard, for keeping this, being the glue that holds this ship together.
Thank you very much. It was a wonderful show, an excellent show. And now let's go do some no icing. Let's do it.
No eyes with Drita from Jersey Shore. Uncle Nino is going to be there, I believe. So and a famous actor who was friends with him. So yeah, go and watch that. That should be entertaining to say the least.
Most definitely.
All right, and check out Jaime Bennett's shows. She's got several.
I have a few.
Not just Belongs to the Shadows. She's got all kinds of glitter and DJ jazzy stuff going on.
Yes. We'll have an album giveaway this weekend. So.
Very good. But most importantly, keep an eye out for those big monsters.
Yes.